right. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us here at the 2024 CUSA Kickoff, presented by Sideline Design. We're here with La Tech head coach Sonny Cumbie and student athletes Jack Turner and Jessie Evans. We're going to start with an opening statement from Coach. Before we jump to questions, those on Zoom, raise your hands, and we'll get to you if we have time here in the room. All right, Coach, welcome.
Well, appreciate you guys having us. Conference USA and Commissioner McLeod have done a phenomenal job of putting on this media days for our student athletes. We're excited to be here in Frisco at PGA of America, the headquarters here, and I think just you could probably ask these guys, but just watching them over the last 48 hours, the student athlete experience that our conference has given these two guys here, and then all the players that have came along with these other schools and these other coaches and everybody that's came along with us in our program. Just excited. I mean, it's been a great event. It's been an unbelievable experience for these guys. And so looking forward to getting this season kicked off. It's our third season. A lot of exciting things that have gone on in Ruston and in Louisiana Tech. Really excited to be representing our school, representing our president, Dr. Henderson, the future and the vision that he has for our school. Ryan Ivey, our athletic director, I think has done great things already, and looking forward to many more. And so I think the two guys that I have chosen, Jack Turner, I think, and Jessie Evans, both of these guys exemplify for me and for our program, everything that we stand for in terms of our cornerstones and our football identity. You think about Jack Turner, who's graduated already in his 2.5, 3 years at Louisiana Tech, getting ready to be the starting quarterback for our football team. Jessie Evans is going to graduate at the end of this fall quarter, and I think is getting ready to really impact our football team on the field as well, at defensive end. But I think that their impact goes so much more than what they do on the field and in our program, in our community. They're heavily involved in our community, and they're heavily involved in our campus life. And they also happen to be able to excel on the football field. And so I think these two young men that represent our program, that represent our players, that represent the city of Ruston and Louisiana Tech, I could not pick two other guys that would exude, really what we stand for in our program. We've got a great schedule. I'm excited about our midweek contest that we kick off a Thursday night. This year we have a Thursday, Tuesday. So our schedule sets up really well from the standpoint of the time in between our games. And then also our opponents. And I think in our league, if you are a fan of football and if you're a fan of watching close games and watching great players, I think the midweek games have been great for our league, and in terms of the close games that you've been able to see, but also for our players to be able to showcase what kind of talent they have on the field. And the coaches in this league and the players of this league are some of the best in the country. And so we're excited to be here, looking forward to embark on our third season as a staff. And very optimistic about the football team that we have on and off the field, and so looking forward to getting this thing started August 31st with a home game against Nicholls State.
All right, we'll jump to questions in the back.
Coach Tony Thomas, College Football Dogs. You played and coached, got your start as a coach under the great Mike Leach. How has he affected you as a coach in the way in your coaching style?
Well, I think that as we look at the landscape of college football, Coach Mike Leach's fingerprints are all over college football. Offensively, I think it's very obvious, but I think from a defensive standpoint too, and how the game has evolved on defense from the standpoint of having to defend the air raid offense, and how defenses changed their personnel, how they recruited differently, how they played players positionally in different positions on defense because of the evolution of Mike Leach's air raid offense. And so I think his fingerprints are all over this game. We know that. His personality was unbelievable. It was a great educational course that I was able to have as a player and then as a graduate assistant sitting in those meetings. And most of the conversation, as you could imagine, was non-football related. And so we talked about everything under the sun, from pirates. You talked about swinging your sword. You talked about the weather, the patterns of the weather, and what to expect from that standpoint of this next windstorm that was about to blow in. And so Coach Leach was unbelievable to listen to. You listened a lot more than you talked to because he was full of wisdom and he knew a lot. And so one of the things that he always shared with us, and it was clear mind, fast legs. And I think that we want to try to emulate that from the standpoint of having our players have clear minds and allow them to play really fast in what they do. And so I think he had an unbelievable ability to keep the game simple. And I think that you try to take all of those things that you learn from other coaches, whether it's Mike Leach, whether it's Gary Patterson, whether it's Matt Wells, guys that you've been around, and implement them into your program. And fortunately for me, I was able to be around Mike Leach and Gary Patterson for a long time. And I think it's very interesting because they're both brilliant on defense, brilliant on offense, and you try to take things that worked well in those programs and implement them and that fit that these guys here in our program. And so I think Mike Leach has touched this game and in a lot of different ways. He's impacted me. I've been sitting here right now based off the influence and really the opportunity that Mike Leach gave me.
All right, we'll jump to the front down here.
Coach Matt Ballinson, Wrestling Daily Leader. I'm curious, what are your expectations for new defensive coordinator Jeremiah Johnson and just getting his hands on this defensive unit this fall?
Well, I think that as we went through the process and making a change on defense, really thought it was important that we listened to our players and what were they looking for from a new defensive staff and from a new defensive coordinator. And I think that from a schematic standpoint and hearing our players out, I think that from a schematic standpoint, I think those things are very important. And I'm really excited about the multiplicity of our scheme that we'll be able to do with Coach JJ and our staff. But the number one thing that I think that himself, Coach Jeff Burris, Keelan Brookins, Cortez Carter, Ja'Cory Greer, the number one thing that they've done this offseason, I think, is they've connected with our players. And that's one of the cornerstones in our program is the connection piece. And I think that what play we call on special teams, defense or offense, is very, very important. But the ability to connect with these young men, I think, and engage their heart and mind, I think is the number one thing I think our players are looking for. And so that's what we try to go out and accomplish. You obviously, just like when you recruit players, you got to have a certain level of talent to be able to be recruited. And you also have to have a certain level of defense. And all right, how do we stop the run? All right, how are we better in the red zone? How do we defend the pass well? And how do we change up the looks for the quarterback? And all of those things. But ultimately, Coach Jeremiah Johnson and his staff, I think, have done a very good job of connecting with our kids. I think he's been in a situation at Kent State where he went in and in 1 year dramatically changed defensively just from a statistical standpoint and guys being able to play really good defense. And I think that we have the pieces in place in terms of the personnel that we have. And I think that Coach JJ and his defensive staff that we've assembled will get the most out of those kids, from a relationship standpoint, yes, but also on the field.
Questions? All right, I'll jump in with one. Jack, you emerged as quarterback one down the stretch. What do you kind of hope to build off from your success at the end of the year as you head into 2024?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is personally is just consistency, being able to go the whole season, playing at a high level for myself, but ultimately winning is big for us. That's something that a standard that we haven't met for ourselves in the past 2 years, and that's something that's incredibly important for us. So that's the big focus this year, just as a team, is making sure that we win a little bit more.
And Jesse, you have the new defensive coordinator coming in. What have you kind of learned from him so far, and how do you guys feel going into the season?
I feel like I learned a lot from Coach JJ. As soon as he stepped foot in the team room, he kind of made a big impact one stand, and I kind of got the whole defense ready to play for him. I feel like we're really excited for what's going to come up for the next fall. We all bought into it now. Like, we really wanted to ride with Coach JJ, and he's just a great guy to have around.
Right here in the front.
Hey, Coach. Kevin Burrell from Sports Illustrated. Just now with Smoke Harris gone, who are some of the receivers you're kind of hoping that will step up?
Yeah, I mean, it's been exciting to see Smoke play for the Hamilton Tiger Cats up in the CFL. I think he's impacted the game. I couldn't imagine defending him on a field that's wider and longer and having him going in forward motion, especially on kick returns and punt returns. And I think that's where he's impacted the game up there, up north, in the shortest amount of time that he's been there. And it's great to see his success, and I think that he'll continue to do that. And I think that, when you look at our roster, the wide receiver position and the inside receiver position, you're not going to have another Smoke Harris from the standpoint of the plays that he made. You want to try to use the guys that you have. And I think in the return game immediately, Dedrick Latulis is the guy's name that comes to mind in the punt return game. I think you saw DeMarcus Griffin-Taylor emerge as our kick returner. He did a phenomenal job from that standpoint. So I think you manufacture it in different ways. It's not going to be as easy as, hey, let's just throw the ball to Smoke and let him break about 8 tackles and get a first down. And I think that you just play off the strengths of the other guys. I think, from the receiver room, it's a different skill set than what you saw. And I think Latulis can do some of that. I think a guy like Solo Lewis is poised to have an impact on our team. And so I think that you find a different way, whether it's a running back, that has a similar skill set to Smoke, but you find a different way in terms of getting guys the football in space and allowing those guys to make people miss. But, Smoke, I think the number 6 on our offense, I think probably there's 11. I guess there's a bunch of other coaches in this building right now, or they're glad that he's gone. And we wish we had him, but he did a great job in our program. But we're excited about the kids that we have and the players and the people we have to replace them.
Head here on the front.
Jesse, we've heard a lot about with Coach Johnson's defense. You guys are playing a lot more free, not thinking as much. I'm curious, like, how do you feel like that'll benefit you guys when you get out there? Like, on a day-to-day basis, what does that mean for you guys?
On a day-to-day basis, I feel like it means a lot to know that we don't have to think before we make a play. We just got to go, because our defense is basically, we have a lot of great athletes out there. So now to know that we could just go out there and play free and just make plays, I feel like that would make our defense way much better than what it was last year.
Coach TP Hammock with the AHS FHS, heading into year 3. What can fans and people outside the program, what can they expect to see from the Bulldogs this year?
Well, I think when you're going into our 3rd season, as we are as a staff, I think that the alignment within our program has never been greater, from top to bottom with coaches to players. And I think that, as we speak right now, we're having a workout going on, and I have very little heartburn about how that workout will go, just because I know that our players, the intent of what they're going to show up with every single day, the intent that they show up in terms of the improvement that they want to see. And so the optimism that I have for this team, our staff has for this team, is the work that we've seen, under the surface the last 2 years, from the standpoint of you have 2 guys here that represent really the 118 players that we have back, and the number one thing that they represent is a group that's hungry to win. And I think the group is determined to win and to play. Last year we had 5 games where we lost the football game on the last drive, 1 score or less. And so I think there's a lot of guys from this football team that have learned from those lessons. And I think they're a determined group. And so that's what I think that these guys that represent our football team and our staff as well, is we're hungry to win. And we're ready to finish games that maybe we let slip away. And then I think we're ready to do that on a daily basis and with the intent with how we show up and work every day.
All right. I will wrap up with one question right here.
Jack, you backed up Hank for most of the season, then obviously had to come in because of his injuries. But what did you learn from him, and what can you take away now as the start of this season?
Yeah, Hank was a great leader to have in front of me. He exemplified just having like a lightheartedness towards the game, not making it more than it was. I think kind of similar to what Coach Cumbie does is just keeping it simple. And he taught me kind of just how to do that. Just go out and just play the game. Trust what you have been coached to do, trust what you've been practicing to do, what you've been training in the off season to do. So I would say that's one of the biggest things that he showed me, is just kind of to trust yourself and just to go out and play the game.
All right, Coach, gentlemen, thank you for your time. We'll be back with Sam Houston in about 5 minutes.